It's a privilege to be here. Culture City is doing some wonderful things. I'm excited. I was able to actually MC the Ignite conference last year in Birmingham. And so just to see what Culture City is doing, not only in the life of others, but even in my life, it's just been a wonderful honor. And so when Julian asked me to speak here today, I had no choice to do that. No, literally, I had no choice, because if he asks you once and you say no, he's gonna ask you like 37 more times, so it's all good. As she said, my name is Sho Baraka. I'm an artist. Amongst other things, I've been a part of the, I guess you could say, the music industry for about 10 years now, or close to 10 years. And this is where I would show you a picture of my beautiful family. As you can see, this stunning Adonis to your right is me. If you have willpower to look away from him, you'll see my son Zimri, my beautiful wife Patrice, my son Zakai, and my daughter Zoe. Boom, and there he goes. There goes my little man, Zakai. So one of the things that we experienced, we're just figuring out how to maneuver within the tensions in the small things, right? So finding a babysitter was extremely difficult. Being able to go to the store, there were many times when we go to the store, because my son doesn't understand the art of transaction, when he'll grab something and he wants to just immediately leave the store, and I'm like, no, son, people get arrested for things like this. And so he would throw a fit and have the disruptive behaviors, and some seemingly old, nice woman would walk up to us and say, oh, baby, if you just leave him with me for a couple days, I'll get him right. And I'm like, okay, I will. I'll leave him with you, please, and don't return him. So, and a lot of folks, they didn't know any better. So it's just situations like this where you're having to experience the great tensions and the mundane things of life that you never thought you would have to deal with. Even going to church was something that was very difficult for us. One of the things that I'm huge on is being an advocate within the church community. A lot of the people who serve in our children's services and our children's churches aren't necessarily certified to work with individuals with special needs, and so you would take them down there, and when you go to pick up your kid, there's this look that they give you, like, and I'm like, you had a good time, didn't you? It's like, yes. So it's about how to create sensory-friendly spaces in churches, and getting people adequate, research and training to even deal with them in churches. So I know there's friends of mine who've struggled with even being able to go to church because it's been very disruptive for them. One of my favorite experiences was going to the barbershop with my son. And this is not a new hip hop hairstyle. He's rocking like the old school Julius Caesar. But this is actually what happens when you throw a fit in the middle of your haircut and you don't want to finish the process. So we actually have to take him home and buy some clippers and finish that ourselves. So these were seemingly some of the type of interactions that we would experience from about 2.5 to about 7 years old. But an interesting situation, even at that barbershop, that touched my heart was after he threw the fit and had a particular he had his experience, and everybody's there, and I'm embarrassed and I'm ashamed, and I'm walking out the door, and this woman walks up to me and she just touched me on my shoulder and she says, I understand, it's gonna be okay. I have a son on the spectrum as well. And though she didn't give me gold and great wealth, I think that moment I realized that she was one of the greatest advocates that I could ever encounter. That moment did so much for me. And from there, I started to realize that I think all of us have a responsibility, not just to figure out how do we help assimilate our kids or our family members into society, but how do we acclimate society to them as well? And then also, how do we learn from this experience? So for me, what I've understood is that I am now enrolled in the school of autism, if you will. And so I'm learning a lot. I'm learning how to not only engage in life, but also engage in society, but I'm learning from my children. As an artist, one of the things that is, I guess you can say, rampant within the artistic world and celebrityism is the concept that you want people to idolize you. I mean, you're selling yourself, you're a brand. And as an artist of close to 10 years, one of the things that I knew that I didn't want exposed was the fact that I had a flaw in my family, if you will. Nobody wants to emulate the artist who has a son with autism. Like, that's not the cool, sexy thing, right? But what really changed for me is I had a buddy who did a video in parenting. So within hip hop, you don't hear a lot of music about parenting. Yo, I picked my son up and we dropped him off and we had a good day. Word. Like that. That's not the kind of stuff you hear. But so the kind of people I wrote with are countercultural. And so my friend approached me. He said, hey, I'm doing this video on parenting within the context of young African-American men, specifically in urban centers. And he said, man, I would love for you to just talk about your experience in parenting. And he knew I had, at that time, 2 children. And the one thing he didn't know is that I had a son with special needs on the autism, on the spectrum. And so what I did was I said, you know what? I can use this opportunity to continue to perpetuate a lie and to cover up and hide the things that I feel like are most real and authentic about me, or I can talk about it. And I did, and I talked about parenting a child with special needs. And what's amazing is the response that I got from that. Not millions, I would like to think millions, hundreds maybe, of emails, tweets, Facebook posts from people who were like, bruh, like, I have a son, or I have a daughter, or I have a nephew, or my brother, or my sister. Like, help me understand this. And for me, I was still young in the autism world and community and advocacy. So for me, it was still about how do I learn to help these people. So that's when I realized that it's almost the responsibility of all of us to be an advocate in some sort of way. And we're not advocates necessarily because of gifting or because of talent. It's out of necessity and burden. And I felt the burden because people looked for me for answers and direction. And so therefore, that's when I realized that being in the school of autism was gonna make me a better advocate. And so there's 4 things that I've learned in this process that I think are huge. One is that this has made me a better learner. It's taught me great sacrifice. As an artist, my wife is an artist. She's a visual artist as well. And so, as you know, artists, we have no respect of time and schedule. But the thing that we know for our kids is that, and family members, is that there needs to be regiment. There needs to be regularity. And so I've had to sacrifice some of my creative whims for structure. We've changed diet. I've made very intentional efforts to embrace the embarrassing moments by forcing, like, I'm going to go to this barbershop, and if we have a moment, we have a moment. And I'm just going to pray, Jesus, don't let me kill this boy. And okay, let's go, let's do it. Just going to the store, engaging him in the everyday activities of life so that 1, I know how to handle him, 2, he gets more experience, and 3, that the environment around him is not, this is not a new thing. Like, they are regularly experiencing people who are different with them, that have different responses. Not too long ago, it's also made me a better father, of course. Not too long ago, I went to a camp up in the Appalachians, and it was an amazing camp. No electronics, no devices, and that's another thing that we've learned to sacrifice in our house to some extent. And we were there for about a week, and each week they rotate families in, about 4 to 5 families. And at the last day of the camp, one of the counselors walks up to me and he says, man, like, I just want to let you know how encouraging you've been. Your presence has been here. You engage with your son. First of all, you're here. And this is somewhat of an anomaly. Hardly do we ever get fathers who engage with their kids when they come here, and very few of them even show up. And that really encouraged me a lot, but it also discouraged me so much to think that I am getting praise for doing something that I'm supposed to do. Like, I am supposed to be present in my son's life. But I think there is something that eats at the insecurity of men when they know their children may not ever be the athlete or may not go to the prom, but yet and still, I think it's taught me a greater understanding of what manhood is. And secondly, it's given me a better understanding on a biblical idea of fatherhood. One is because oftentimes we think fatherhood is and love is based on performance. And I've learned that that is not the case. My son will hardly ever do the performing or accomplish the task that I want him to do, but yet and still, as I see my relationship with Jesus Christ as a barometer on what unconditional love looks like, so I try to reciprocate that in my son. No matter the behavior, no matter the response, that there is still love for my son. The other thing that it's done, it has made me a better husband. If the statistics are true that relationships and marriages exponentially end in divorces, this is something that scared me. I'm already ready to strangle my wife when she makes bad decisions with Netflix. So you compound that with the autism, and I'm like, well, there's no hope for us. We're done. But it taught me that we have a common goal and we strive together. We've kind of killed selflessness in addressing this issue together. And I think there's nothing worse than an individual who would leave his wife with a situation like this. And we went to a retreat one time and talked to a couple who was much older than us. And we just asked them, said, what is the greatest piece of advice that you would give to a married couple in our position? And they said something so simple, but yet so profound. They said, live a long time and love each other. And that to me just, it spoke volumes. One, we want to live as long as we can because we recognize that we will have to advocate for our kids as long as we can, or our family members, but also how do we train those those kind of outside extended family members to care and to love, but also a loving household is the safest place for our kids and our family members. It's also taught me how to be a better student of life and of faith. I recognize that life is not about myself. It's about service of other people. And in that same concept, I truly understand the secret of contentment, as the scripture says that I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. And it's not that I have some magical power, but it's I have a right perspective. And I think contentment is a very interesting word. And one of my favorite philosophers, G.K. Chesterton, he makes a statement. He says that contentment shouldn't mean he says what it ought to mean in English, what it means in French, is that it's not that you have not the ability to move on from your current circumstance, but that you understand and appreciate the position you're in. And so for us, it's about understanding where we are, that where God has placed us is of uttermost importance. There's a great quote that has many different variations, and MLK is one individual who says it this way. He says, if God has called you to be a street sweeper, don't stoop so low as to be a king. Because we recognize that street sweepers have importance in our society, and they have dignity. And just like that, for our children, we recognize, and our family members, we recognize that there's great dignity in who they are and that they have purpose in society. And to relegate our emotions to just hoping that everything would just change, I don't think that teaches us to appreciate what they offer us in society and what we can learn from them. And then lastly, I've become a great advocate. As an artist, I've used my platform to help fund different initiatives. I try to speak on the behalf of organizations like Culture City that I think are doing amazing jobs in this circle or in this particular sphere of influence. And just like that lady in the barbershop, I've learned that advocacy is not just, there are going to be some people here who have done wonderful things. There are people who develop great apps, who've helped write bills and institute policies and done great research. But let's not get intimidated by those particular tasks to think that we relegate that to advocacy alone. Just like that lady in that barbershop who touched me on my shoulder and said it'll be okay. That is great advocacy as well. And in that, we understand that we all have a responsibility to speak and to serve and to love. And it's also okay to say, I don't know, I don't have all the answers. And I would like to end with this piece that I wrote that communicates some of my struggle and tension. It goes, it's apparent, sometimes I feel I failed as a parent, and my son having autism is rough, But maybe he don't speak because words don't say much. Maybe he don't need words to communicate his love. And sometimes his silence, it causes me to stumble. It's possible he's a version of me that's more humble. Sometimes I think he finds more joy in playing with my phone, playing on his own, when he shed a tear when I'm gone. I wrestle with the shame of an outsider's view of me. His life is a spotlight on my own insecurity, but I know his laugh, it lights up 1,000 rooms. And when he speaks to me, it's just like a flower blooms. This has just become my own digital diary. I'm at the doctor's office just hoping they would lie to me. My son will be all right, but if he's not, my son will be all right, because he is God's. Autism, sickle cell, or Down syndrome, still keeping the faith in the midst of hard living. We stand together because we have no other place to go. My son and I will live and fight even though I don't have the answers. Thank you.